Just to be clear, you're denying that you sought a pardon for yourself?
Yes, that's correct.
Here's some of the under oath testimony from Trump insiders, and I know you've maintained a strong relationship with Donald Trump, but basically, we've got multiple people, the director of White House presidential personnel, who's a Trump loyalist, lawyer Eric Hirschman, Cassidy Hutchinson famously. We could put this up. They all testified under oath that you specifically requested a pardon. And I'll play a little bit of the sound on this. Here was the lawyer out of these three discussing it in testimony. Take a listen.
The general tone was, we may get prosecuted because we were defensive of, the president's positions on these things. As broad as you could describe. From the beginning, I remember he's from the beginning of time up until today, for any and all things. I think he mentioned Nixon, and I said Nixon's pardon was never nearly that broad.
That's some of the testimony. To give you the benefit of responding, since I have you here tonight, here's what some others said in the hearing. MTG discussing just generally that meeting, and then others describing that. Take a listen.
Said we've got to have a meeting. There's many of us that feel like this election has been stolen.
On December 21st, some Republican members of Congress met with President Trump in the White House to talk about overturning the 2020 election.
Mr. Gates was personally pushing for a pardon, and he was doing so since early December. He advocated for there to be a blanket pardon for members involved in that meeting.
I want to give you the benefit of responding to it, but I also want to take this process seriously. So respectfully, you have individuals who are not known to be coordinating in any way. They all have their own counsel. They have an incredible legal liability if they lied about this. And multiple individuals, all of whom, by the way, Republican appointees, are testifying that in that period after that December meeting, you, sir, requested a pardon for yourself and other attendees at the meeting. And so the question is, can you really say that all of them are committing perjury, lying on you, A, and B, if a pardon was requested, why not just tell us what were you worried about? What was it that you thought you or others might be indicted for?
Well, I mean, Cassidy Hutchinson is a known liar. There's testimony she's given that directly results in perjury. So I would certainly take exception with her testimony. I do not remember it the same way Eric Hirschman does. I did have conversations with Eric Hirschman about different groups of people that could potentially receive pardons, even including some of the people who may have committed a technical violation of federal law, but that weren't engaged in violence on January 6th.
So
I guessed hold on now.
Mr. McEntee, no, I'm going to let you finish, but is Mr. McEntee a liar as well? And yes, you may finish.
Well, I had a lot of conversations with Mr. McEntee about pardons for other folks and different groups of people. Whether or not some lawmakers would have fallen within those groups, I think, could be debated and discussed. But when it comes to, was I asking something specifically for me and only me under those circumstances, the answer would be no.
Did you advocate a pardon for other lawmakers to Mr. McEntee or others?
No, there were discussions about pardons for President Trump, his family members, his allies, and presumably members of Congress could have fallen in that group. But there was nothing in the January 21st meeting that would have resulted in any need for a pardon because we had Mike Pence there. He was present for the meeting. He was friendly and I think very accommodating to our request to just know information about how the floor would play out that day. Most of the floor action in Congress is very scripted. This was going to be unprecedented, and we wanted to make sure we understood how he intended to proceed from a procedural posture.
Well, Vice President Pence's attendance doesn't cancel out if somebody tried to plan or conspire or attempt a crime any more than Donald Trump is under investigation in Georgia for calling an elections official, and the allegation is potentially that he was conspiring and that person was resisting. I mean, if Pence was resisting,
but Mike Pence wrote a book about all the things that he objected to that were a pressure campaign against him, and this January 21st meeting does not make an appearance in that book. And so I think it shows you that Pence did not view this as some sort of criminal pressure or some sort of attempt to view things differently. We obviously now know, with the benefit of time, that Mike Pence took a different view than some of the people who attended that meeting. And if that was some source of criminal behavior, I think you'd be hearing from the vice president that that was the case. But of course, it was more about process, and that's why it wouldn't ever have been the subject of a pardon request from anyone.
The process, though, was still trying to overturn the lawful election of President-elect Biden. After the courts have been exhausted and after, of course, the Electoral College had voted, you and others, of course, then voted not to certify. I'm curious for us to understand this, as you are sort of charting this period, as you say, you have influence in the caucus, and you say you're going to try to work with Kevin McCarthy and everything else. I'm curious, what's your basic bottom line position on what happened on January 6th? Those folks who stormed the Capitol at least shared the goal that you identified, which was to overturn the election results. When they stormed the Capitol, did you view that as well? You welcome them because you guys share the same goal, or how did you view it?
No, of course not. Our goal was to have a debate and a discussion. And it's really interesting when your network talks about this, you never seem to reflect on the fact that Jamie Raskin and Jim McGovern and Benny Thompson, all Democrats, were offering their objections to Trump electors. Matter of fact, the last Republican president to be sworn in absent some sort of Democrat objection to their electors was George Herbert Walker Bush. And so this is not some, circumstance where we were trying to overturn an election. We wanted to have a debate about election integrity. Vice President Pence agreed that debate would be helpful, and we were there on the 21st to discuss how the debate would go.
When they stormed the Capitol, your view was what of them?
My view is that was a terrible day, and I completely oppose political violence. I love politics, but I'm not much for violence. So if this thing becomes violent, I'm not going to be very good at it for very long. So I have no love for anyone who would strike another, harm another for the sake of politics like that.
So, Congressman, let's take what you just said seriously. You referred to the coverage of this, the network, and you referred to what we might call the legislative history or the precedent where there have been, as you accurately note, there have been certifications challenged before. But you voted to do that after you and others were run out of your place of work because of the Trump fans that Donald Trump summoned to Washington. We know how they got there. We know what they did in the morning. We know that Mr. Eastman and others wanted them to be a part of the pressure campaign to overturn the election. And so while you mentioned history, none of those other votes, of course, took place after a violent insurrection. And so let me ask this the clearest way possible. And again, I appreciate you coming on and taking the questions. But if you're going to take them honestly, sir, do you not see how doing that after those people came in with the Trump flags, attacking police, where's Nancy, where's Pence, the person you met with, Vice President Pence, was targeted for assassination by those people. Members of your caucus and the other party, who cares what party, targeted, run out of this place. And you had to come back under the threat of violence and try to hold that. That voting then in common cause with them against certification, do you not see how people of good faith, including Republicans, if you want to be political about it, view that as different and a tacit support for part of what they did that day, that it's different since you did it right after the violence?
No, I would reject that premise. I am in no common cause with people who engage in political violence. I am against it explicitly and have been consistent on that point. I think what would have been really unfortunate for my constituents and a betrayal of my constituents is if I would have let a violent act or a riot change the vote that was an informed vote based on some of the concerns that I had about the election. So, again, we didn't do anything different than Democrats had done, not only once, but literally for every Republican since George H.W. Bush.
Well,
I mean, they were objecting to George W. Bush's win over John Kerry.
Well,
they were objecting to. I wasn't going to change my vote.
Obviously, sir, you're going to conduct yourself however you choose. I acknowledge some of the things you said that are rooted in history. I don't know if you can acknowledge what I just said, which is that it was different than those examples because you just had a actual, now convicted sedition insurrection. That's the difference.
Well, I don't think that my vote should have changed because of violence. I think when we start changing our votes based on violent acts,
that's not what
you're
I'm
actually
saying.
going to invite more violent acts.
But that's not what I'm saying. What I'm saying is that what were usually small and somewhat ceremonial or what we call message votes in Congress sometimes looked very different that night. And I guess you're saying you don't even see or understand why it could look different.
I don't see why my concerns about election integrity and perhaps the ceremonial position I wanted to take regarding changes to election law, I didn't understand why that should be frustrated or diminished because some people really took some very unfortunate steps to engage in violence and a riot on the Capitol, something that I summarily reject.
All right. Well, look, I appreciate you taking the questions on that. We've gone long on a lot of issues, including some policy. I did want to get you on the record because first time you've been back on the beat on a story we've covered. The Washington Post reporting the career prosecutors ultimately recommended no charges in this case that involved an associate or former associate of yours and what was a sex trafficking probe. How do you view this case? Is it closed? And have you heard anything from the DOJ about it?
Well, 4 months ago, you did your last story on this in The Beat, and you said that my denials had been substantiated. That was your word after that Washington Post report, so I guess I don't quibble at all with your characterization. Yeah,
we did report that because, as you say, that's what was coming out of the probe. Beyond the criminal line, I did also want to ask you about some of the allegations, not suggesting we rehash everything. And as reported, the DOJ seems to be signaling no charges. If you have a comment on whether you heard from them, we'd be very interested in that. And then second, with regard to Mr. Greenberg, many outlets have reported things that range from his now convicted crimes to corruption, to you going to a tax office late at night, to you Venmoing him money, to there being alleged events or group activities where at least others, and again, I want to be very precise, not reporting about confirming this regard to you, but others at those events accused of crimes in those settings. Do you regret any of that? Do you think there's anything here to change or learn from, even if it doesn't reach a criminal bar as reported?
Well, a lot of the things you mentioned, as to me, are not true. And of course, again, I've made those denials consistently. You even indicated that those denials have been substantiated. Do I regret any association with Mr. Greenberg? Absolutely. And I had to be candid with my constituents that it would be fair for them in this last election to judge me based on that association. But I hope they would judge it alongside all the other work that I've done for them. And they reelected me with overwhelming vote shares, about 70% of the vote in the general election. So I do regret that. It's an association I shouldn't have had, and I am going to be a lot more careful about my associations going forward.
Understood. Congressman Matt Gaetz, we set aside the time because it's been a little while. You've obviously been in the news and in government here making waves. I appreciate you coming on The Beat. I hope you come back.
Absolutely. I hope you'll have me. I look forward to seeing you in Washington soon, I hope.
Yes, sir. Congressman Matt Gaetz, thank you.